Right, Chris, democracy in the party. You did those roadshows a year or two back. Do you think, you mentioned today that it shouldn't be a career but a calling, or some words like that. How would you do that? Would you put people up for selection?
Yes, I mean, I think we need to return to open selections. It was discussed at last year's conference, and therefore means that under the rules of the party, rule changes can't be debated again for 3 years. But the National Executive Committee isn't bound by the 3-year rule, so I would recommend that constituency Labour parties lobby the NEC to bring this back, because I think there's a real desire amongst the Labour movement, not just Labour Party, but I think trade union members too, who are associated with the party, grassroots members, want to see much greater accountability in that sense. So I think that would be a really positive step forward, but also extending democracy to the way in which we make policy as well. We now live in this digital era, and I think we should embrace that and use that, and I know Jeremy's talked about this previously, but we have now an opportunity to use this new technology, this new communications era, to involve every single member of our party in the direction of travel of our party. And I think that would also be incredibly beneficial in terms of bringing people into the party, because every single member then could feel they're genuinely able to have some influence over the way in which the party develops and the policy direction that it takes. And it was Ed Miliband who said, I think when he was standing for the Labour leader back in 2010, that if we'd listened to our members a bit more when we were in government from 1997 to 2010, we wouldn't have made as many mistakes. We wouldn't have gone to war in Iraq, would we? We wouldn't have cut benefits for some of the poorest people in society. We wouldn't have introduced tuition fees. We wouldn't have brought in private healthcare into the National Health Service. We would have had a industrial strategy fit for purpose. We would have built council houses. We would have had a higher minimum wage and so on. So I think involving members, there is absolutely nothing to be fearful about that. That can only be a good thing, because it's grassroots members that are in touch with life in every single constituency, because that's where they live and work on a daily basis, much more so than members of Parliament, who inevitably have to be in Westminster for a large proportion of the year. And so, giving members greater influence over the party policy programme, I think, would make us a party which was much more in touch with the wider general public, and make us a party that would therefore be considerably more popular, which, as I've said, would help us to win the next general election and then sustain us when we get there.
Which is a very good answer. Changing the subject slightly, the National Health Service, it's the one thing that I think most people in the country would agree that we need, that we're proud of in this country. Is it too far gone?
Well, I mean, Naib Evans said, the NHS will last for as long as there are folk willing to fight for it, and there are plenty of people willing to fight for the NHS, but it is in mortal danger, there's no doubt about that. We made that point in 2012, I think it was, when the Tories introduced the Social Care and Health Act, and Andy Burnham, fought a valiant campaign against the Tory plans at the time. But unfortunately, they pushed it through. And now we know that there is a real effort to privatise as much of the NHS as they possibly can. We know that that is their general direction of travel, but I don't think it's too far gone now. It's never too late for any of these things, and let's remember, the words of Tony Benn, who said, there are no final victories, just as there are no final defeats. He said that each generation has to fight the same battle again and again and again, and we've got to fight this battle now for the National Health Service, just as we fought for it under Thatcher, just as we fought for it in the first instance to introduce it back in 1948. So, yes, there's dangers, clearly, and we have to do all we can really to stand up and fight for it. If we leave, or when we leave the European Union, if we leave with a no-deal Brexit, that's looking increasingly likely now, then we've obviously got to guard against the avaricious American health care companies coming in and seeing the NHS as rich pickings for them. But whatever they do, when we get a Corbyn-led Labour government, we will repair any damage that they inflict on the NHS, and the NHS is the greatest socialist innovation this country's ever seen.
One thing we've noticed at our age is remembering the 70s and remembering when Thatcher famously used that poem of St Francis and didn't mean a word of it when she stood on the steps of Downing Street. And it seems that the idea of the spirit of cooperation has almost dissipated into thin air. How do we bring that back?
Well, I mean, to some extent that's true. However, I think if you look around, look indeed just in terms of the Labour movement, the Labour Party, that's growing exponentially. We saw that collaboration in the last general election, which was awe-inspiring to witness. You look around different communities in every town and city in the country, you still see there is that kind of that camaraderie, that solidarity, that sense of recognising that when we work together, we are better. So I think it's that kind of it's a human condition really to kind of cooperate and collaborate and to put the interests of the many above your own selfish interests in that sense. Yes, that's something that the Tories did try and push, and they had some success with it under Margaret Thatcher. She talked about a property owning, share holding democracy, but it was all a fallacy. And I think people can see that. People have seen that they were sold a pub. And particularly younger people now, the victims of 40 years now of neoliberalism in this country, where precarious employment is now endemic. It's very difficult for younger people to get a foot on the housing ladder if they aspire to buy their own home. It's almost impossible to get a council house because they're very few and far between. And many young people are really stuck because they can't afford to rent in the private sector either. So now many young people are stuck at home and unable to move out and as it were, become independent. I mean, as a kid, when I was a 19-year-old apprentice bricklayer, me and my girlfriend was a telephonist at the city council, but we were earning enough money between us to save up a deposit and buy a brand new 3-bedroom semi-detached house, actually in a desirable village 8 miles south of Derby, backing onto a waterfront. It was only 3 times what I was earning as an apprentice. And many of my contemporaries did similarly. It wasn't that unusual for teenagers to buy their own home, but many didn't, and they decided they were going to get a council house. And what you used to do in those days, it would be, I'm going to leave home, or we're getting married or something, or we're moving in, we're going to live together, go down to the local authority, well, we're moving out to my mum and dad's house and getting married or whatever, setting up on you. Okay, fine, put your name down here. Well, literally within a few weeks, a couple of months maybe, you get a council house. Absolutely appalling that we, in the 5th biggest economy in the world, that young people can't do that. So, young people know the consequences through their employment, through the way they're ripped off if they want to get a higher education, through the housing crisis that we've got at the moment, and they're looking for something different. So I think that sense of solidarity is something that is very palpable now, and I'm very, very confident, to be honest with you, that we can build on that, and we can give form to people's hopes and aspirations, and that we can deliver a better country, we can deliver a better world. And because the eyes of the world are on Labour, they are on this country, and if we can, bring about a progressive socialist Labour government under Jeremy Corbyn and deliver some of the transformations that I think we can, then I think this will have ramifications right away around the world. A little bit like the Thatcher-Reagan revolution that took place. Just imagine the special relationship with Bernie Sanders.
Call it a revulsion, but there you go.
Well, indeed. But just imagine the special relationship between the United States and the United Kingdom, with Jeremy Corbyn in number 10 and Bernie Sanders in the White House, and then with socialists, out and out socialists, not just Bernie Sanders, but others like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Ilhan Omar as well. This is fantastic. What we're seeing is happening right around the globe now. There's an appetite for socialism. People can see that market economics and neoliberalism has been a catastrophic failure, particularly for working class communities, and particularly even more so for working class young people.
There does seem to be a problem, and that's why we're here with the media. And the bias of the BBC has become absolutely a joke figure amongst us on this side of politics. And even the dear old Guardian, the Groeny ad, which was started after Peterloo to address the bias in the media, seems to have fallen away completely. How the media have treated you absolutely abysmally, and they've treated, I think, everyone on the left. And there seems to be this drip feed, and not just the mainstream media, but the problem we have is that you look at films on television, and the pictures, and everything is American superheroes, and it used to be cowboys and Indians, and it's all this drip feed of how do we stop that? What do we do?
Jeremy made a very important speech last year at the Edinburgh Festival, but of course this isn't entirely a new phenomenon. It has got worse, but I remember, just in terms of using, cinema, for example. mean, you mentioned films and so on, and that kind of drip feed. I remember there was a film called I'm All Right, Jack, which was, I think Peter Sellers was a leading starring role, playing this kind of vicious trade union shop steward. Absolutely. It's all about undermining the trade union movement, and that was a kind of quite a regular thing. There was also a lot of good political, positive stuff on the left in those days too. That has kind of dried up now. So I take your point about, you know, the use of those cultural influences in that sense, and in terms of the mainstream media being an absolute waste of space as far as kind of any balance is concerned in that sense. But in many ways, ever it was, thus it just got worse. But Jeremy's intervention, I thought, was really profound at the Edinburgh Festival last year when he talked about democratising the media. So, you know, not kind of giving up on it, but recognising that, again, this word democracy, if we can strengthen democracy, if we can democratise the media, we can make it fit for purpose. Break up the ownership of it, clearly, you know, elect the, you know, for example, the BBC, the governors, they make them elected, you know, by BBC kind of employees. He also talked about top slicing the big media companies and using that to fund, you know, local journalism, but local journalistic collectives, local journalistic cooperatives, if you like, you know, because let's remember, look, the media, both at a local level and a national level, isn't necessarily interested in imparting the truth. It's interested in circulation. It's interested in being able to sell advertising. And that's been true just as much. I know people, particularly on the Tory benches, have bemoaned the demise of the local newspapers. And, you know, obviously I don't particularly want to see local newspapers necessarily going down the tube, but they haven't exactly been paragons of impartiality at a local level. What we've seen is local newspapers, again, you know, playing a very sort of partial game in that sense and undermining, you know, kind of progressive voices. So I think Jeremy's idea of democratising our media, of top-slicing the big media companies, using that to, you know, to invest in local, you know, investigative journalism and so on, I think would be, you know, incredibly profound in terms of the change that it would make. And of course, the other thing is you know, a fairly easy thing in a sense. In the first instance, implement Leveson 1 and embark on Leveson 2. So all of those things, I think, you know, look, nothing is, again, the Tony Benn thing. You know, no final victory, no final defeat. Each generation fighting the same battles. This is the battle, however. I think, you know, if we can bring it off, it will bring about the irreversible shift, the irreversible change, which will be for everybody's good, you know. This is not to say we just want a kind of a free ride, you know, that where we make mistakes we shouldn't be called up and held to account for them. But it's just having that balance, really. That's all we want, I think. If we can have balanced reporting, then allow people to make their own mind up. I'm sure the force of our arguments is such that we will win over more people that way, and you know, we will be able to make the changes which I think will be so life-changing to millions of people in this country.
Thank you very much for that, Chris. Appreciate it.